but I,
But you don't know.
I'm thinking of going to Vienna instead.
Or Vienna?
Just not to be here. We can't stand it. It's crazy.
What's in Vienna?
Instead of Venice.
Sounds the same. Okay. So we last time we began to talk about how you actually purge. What do you actually do to clean the mind and to connect only to Hashem's goodness? So I couldn't help but hear the Rav Effie's class at home while I was doing other things as well. And one of the things that struck me was very interesting. They began to talk about confidence, which is usually not the topic of discussion in rectifying the ego, because really rectifying the ego is really about gaining lowliness and not so much confidence. So I wanted to build on that, what he explained about the type of good confidence, which really is referring to the confidence that we're doing here, faith and confidence, and to explain the difference between how you gain confidence from failure and how you gain confidence from sin. Two different things,
Wow.
like a little bit different from one another. So in the general world, it sounds like the same because both of them represent failure. But in the depth, they create something else. Rectifying the ego is to convince us that our ego is not something we can count on in the sense of being able to go through life with. So, in a certain sense, if you're a religious person, so Hashem sends you sin as a failure, something that you did wrong, to convince you that really you can't cope by yourself. You can't go by your own devices. You have to rely on Hashem. But there's total what we call subjugation or submission, meaning that the result is that I'm left in a state after I do something wrong, do an avera, and I realize that this is my nature to do something wrong. It's not. It wasn't a mistake. It was actually my nature. It's called Adam Le'olam Mu'ad. The person is always prone to do things that are wrong because he has an animal soul. And the animal soul wants to do things that are forbidden. Not forbidden in the sense maybe that it's an Aveira, but it's certainly not what Hashem wants. After an Aveira, there's a feeling of Tuma. There's a feeling of being unclean. That's what should be. That's how it is. And so, for Hashem to hold me up is really for me to admit that without Hashem holding me, I would be the lowest of all possible, in the lowest of all possible realities. I would sink down to the lowest place. And it's really Hashem who's been holding me up all this time. And that's submission. Submission is, if you remember when we learned about submission, separation, sweetening, is that if I go back and I look at one event in my life, which I think Hashem forsook me, or had forsaken me, He had left me alone, and I felt that I was just all alone in the world. I was all alone with myself, all alone with my problems, all alone with everything that I have. And to look back and to see that actually was Hashem carrying me. Because really, if He would not have been carrying me, it would have been a lot worse. And I have to convince myself that what does it mean that He was carrying me? That I learned something from it. That in the end I learned to depend on Hashem. I learned that I could turn to Hashem and I needed Him to turn to in order to get me out of where I am. This is what submission means. I need this point outside of myself in order to be able to carry all the negative traits that I have.
The point outside is the sin.
No, the point outside is Hashem. This is what I call Hashem. Hashem is outside, as it were. He's outside of everything that's going on here. So, in a certain sense, here inside I feel very alone. But really, if I was that alone, I wouldn't get through it. And the fact that I do get through these things, and not only do I get through them, but I understand the lesson, which is that to get through it, I have to turn to Hashem. That's what it means that Hashem was carrying me. That I couldn't navigate this trouble that I'm experiencing and feeling without Him holding me the whole time. And so, what does it look like? It looks like there's one set of footprints. This famous mashal, which is a very strong mashal. But the realization suddenly comes that, wait a minute, that set of footprints is not mine because I wasn't walking. If I really think about it, I wasn't able to walk through this situation. I was too weak to walk. I didn't have even that in me. So what was happening was really that Hashem was carrying me. It just seemed to me that I think that it's I who got myself out. I depended on myself. But really, I wasn't able to. I would have been, if Hashem wouldn't be carrying me on His shoulders, I'd see a set of footprints and drag marks. That I'd be dragged through the sand, through this path. There's nothing in me that could have held me up. There's nothing in me that could be that strong. So there's complete dependence. And it's dependence because I'm working with my animal soul. Meaning I'm still identifying with my animal soul, and I think that that's the way to get through life. Remember, when we talk about the animal soul, we say that's the survival instinct in the person. The survival instinct is an animalistic instinct. It comes from the medulla, right? From the lizard brain, as they call it. It comes from a very deep place in the psyche, which feels that to navigate life means to survive physically. And so that's prone to doing many, many things that are wrong, literally wrong. They're either an avera or some kind of immoral behavior or whatever it is. And that I see as my only way to survive in the world. That's how the animal soul thinks. But when we're talking about faith and confidence, we're talking about the divine soul. We're not talking about the animal soul anymore. And it's true that most of us, we don't identify completely with the divine soul. We sort of tend to fall back into identifying ourselves as creatures that need to physically survive. By the way, how are we going to get rid of the animal soul? If everybody's survival was insured, so the animal soul would have to evolve. It would have to start thinking about other things, and the more it thinks about higher things, the closer it comes to the what we call the intellectual soul. The closer it comes to the divine soul. The animal has to evolve in that sense. I mean, if all I'm thinking about in terms of survival is how I put food on the table, my health, social survival, okay, that's a big one. How I feel about my place in society, in my house, in my family, and all these things. So that all causes me to be engrossed in myself.
Some Holocaust survivors.
Okay? They hoard food because they can't believe. Meaning, it's been so hurt, the animal soul, that they can't believe that tomorrow there will be food there, and they won't put their money in a bank because the banks took all the money. They didn't collapse; they just took the money. They won't keep because there's no basic trust in life. That's trust in life, like in life. That's not trust in myself yet, not confidence in myself. Whether the world is a decent place. So as long as the animal soul doesn't have proof that the world is a decent place, it's really fighting really for its survival. And all I can think about all day is just myself, but it's in a very, very basic way. The very fact that we're discussing what we're discussing now today means that at some level we have some security. we have some basic security, and we're now challenged by different issues in the animal soul. And it's not so much how am I going to eat tomorrow, or not at all,
What I'm going to eat.
okay, what I'm going to eat. It's more, what are other people going to say about me? How am I going to see myself in society? How am I going to see my place in the world? That's already a much higher question. It's a much more, in a certain sense, it's also an animal soul question, but it comes from a much higher place. And it's already closer to what we call the intellectual soul. And there we can already begin to discuss, because if somebody doesn't have anything to eat tomorrow, it doesn't matter how much you're going to discuss it with them. The bottom line is that the animal soul doesn't trust its life, it doesn't have basic security. But once you come to a higher level, you can begin to discuss higher things. So that's where really Torah Nefesh starts. We come and we say, but now humanity is in a stage where it's interested not only in its physical survival, it's now interested in its psychological survival. It's interested in psychological goodness. It's interested in finding some higher source of inspiration. Some people whose only source of inspiration is Vanity Fair. It's true. Was I in the gossip column or not? That's what it means to, I don't know if that's how it works, but I'm just, the name of that magazine sounds like it would deal with that. So am I situated where I'd like to be in society? Am I being invited to the right places, to the right parties, to the right kiddushim, to whatever it is? Yeah. But the moment that's what troubles you, now we can begin to speak about what do you really want to do with your life. Because we're not talking anymore about putting food on the table. We're not talking about the basic security needs. Okay, so then that's where we begin to talk about faith and confidence, and we say here you have to stop identifying yourself with the animal soul, which is taught that its basic existence is dependent on Hashem. Even day to day, everything that I have. And here we have to begin to speak about, can you identify with your divine soul? Now, it doesn't mean that there's no issues with the animal soul anymore. Of course there are. But they're not solved. They're very complex, and that's why you continue learning, rectifying the ego. And it's deeper and so on. It comes to more depth and understanding how we hold from ourselves and how we think we're so important and that we don't, we can do everything by ourselves and we don't need Hashem and so on. But when it comes to the higher functioning of the psyche, which is, I want to do something. Now I have my basic security. I want to do something with my life. What do I want to do? So I can put my goal as being the top of the social ladder, or I can put my goal and place it in something that has to do with serving, becoming somebody who serves society. It's not interested in how do I get to the top of it, but rather how do I change it. I'm interested in doing things that will serve the world. Or to say it another way, I'm interested in doing Hashem's will. I'm interested in doing something that Hashem wants me to do. And that already we don't describe just as one particular mitzvah that I do and another particular mitzvah, but rather we're talking then about what's my mission in life. What am I supposed to be doing? So one of the greatest missions is, of course, to have a family. There's no greater mission. I have to do everything that I can to have a family. A person who doesn't have a family, so they don't know what it means to serve Hashem at all. There's no question.
But why is the mitzvah on the man and not on the woman?
No, it's not. Because in general we place commitments on the male side of reality. On the female side, those things out of nature. So it's almost it would be almost unnatural to tell a woman you have to have children. And by the way, if you would do that, then a lot more women would sacrifice their lives in ways that they shouldn't to be able to do that. As is, they do it anyway. But if you told them that's also a mitzvah, who knows where it would go. So we're a little careful not to Not to make women feel that because they do it anyway. It's a natural need. But this is a very basic thing that if a person, that's why we say it for men, because for men it's somewhat unnatural. And somewhat unnatural for them to commit and to say, yeah, I'm going to raise a family. Why? Because it means being it means I have to be attached to something. I have to be committed to something. But that attachment really is to be attached to Hashem. That's really to be attached to the infinite. It's not an attachment to the actual child, because it's not. I don't do it. That's what a lot of the Tanya has this. That we don't love our children because of just natural love. The natural love is just one level. It's a basic level that all the humanity shares. But if you only have natural love, unfortunately, natural love can only take you so far. But we're committed infinitely to it. We're attached infinitely. And in a certain sense, when it comes from being committed to Hashem, when this attachment to our children, to our families, comes from being committed to Hashem, it's actually able to sustain the feeling that I should be committed to everybody's children, not just to my own. Which with natural love doesn't work at all. It's contradictory. If you talk only about natural connection between parents and children, then the parents can only sustain their own children. They will never go the distance for somebody else's. But when you talk about that my attachment to my children is natural, and more importantly, it's because Hashem commanded me to raise them, so then Malacha bincha Malacha ben Azulat. Doesn't matter whose son it is. So much so that what does it mean to raise somebody else's child is to teach them Torah. And when I teach him Torah, he's like my son. He becomes like my son in that sense. That's not natural connection. That's connection that comes from a much higher place in the psyche. So there, when we're talking about my mission in life, so now we're talking about how do I identify with my divine soul. My divine soul wants a mission, not just survival. And that's the big thing. And now when I come to a mission, I have to have a different type of confidence. The confidence here is not security that I will be okay tomorrow, I'll have food on the table. It's a confidence that I can change reality, that I can succeed in my mission. And when there's a failure or a setback, the meaning is not that I have to go back to being dependent completely for my existence on what's outside, on Hashem that's outside of me, but rather that Hashem, and we'll see this, is telling me you have to draw down, you have to go do this special act of drawing down a new line, if it fails. And we'll talk more about this today. You have to purge, and you have to rethink and do what Rachav couldn't do, which is you have to give birth to yourself again. So Reshit HaKav, the beginning of the line, which is the hardest because there's a gap there that's an infinite gap. It's a quantum leap from what I knew before to what I now have to do. Yeah.
But was that also part of the plan?
Yeah.
Even the failure, it's all part of the plan.
But it's not part of the plan linearly, meaning it's not that the failure, after it just comes out a new line. No, I have to go back to as it were, to square one of my psyche and bring it down, and bring down that thing that initially I brought down. I have to bring it down again. That's strengthening my confidence in my ability to actually see this mission through. So we'll talk more about this today. The reason this came up for me this week was because I was talking to a group of some people who were developing some project. And they mentioned there's so many self-help books today, there's an infinite number. And a lot of them don't do they don't help people. People read them, and they're very inspired, but they find it almost impossible to implement. And so my general claim was that these books always start from stage 2. They never tell you about stage 1. And the reason is because you can't know about stage 1 unless you have a concept of Hashem in your world. And the stage 1 is the purging, is that there's only Hashem here. if you don't start with a feeling of equanimity, we'll talk more about this as we go on, but if you don't start with the stage one which says everything is okay, it's fine as it is, it'll be okay, I don't know how, but it'll be okay, that's what we called that I push aside all my machinations, all my thoughts, all my plans, everything. And I come and say in the end, what is there if I push everything aside? There's only Hashem, and Hashem is good. If you don't start with that, you're not starting a new process. So they give you 7 steps to success. Now these 7 steps, you just can't pick up from where you are right now. It won't work. Because where you are right now is at the tail end of some kav that you've already drawn down. Who knows when you began? It could be that you began it 20 years ago. And now, suddenly you want to do something new. But nobody teaches you, wait a minute, everything you had, and you're not throwing it out. We'll say it was so in a moment that the people actually threw it out. But you're not just throwing it out. I'm not throwing my house out. I'm not throwing my family out. I'm not throwing everything out and saying I have to start my mission anew. But I'm throwing out all my, what I feel was the plan, was the direction. I'm willing to take on something completely new. I'm willing to populate my emotions, my emotional constitution, my intelligence, everything with something new. And this something new will affect reality much better than the previous one, because the previous one came to its end. It's as much as it could do. Whatever I had in my mind before, all the energy that I had before, has worked itself out. It's finished itself. It can't do anymore. I have to bring down a new source of energy, a new source of the infinite. Yeah.
But there was a purpose. It sounds like
Yeah,
of
course.
there's a purpose, and then when it needs to be thrown out to something else.
So as a class we gave a few weeks ago, that every one of these lines is complete. And out of the silhouette around all these lines comes what we call the revelation of the infinite. But each one of these lines in its own place is complete, wherever I started it from. Remember we talked about the circle, that you can start taking a line out. The result describes it like one line comes down from the top. The truth is, and this Alter Rebbe says, actually, if you watch the shiur from yesterday, Derech Mitzvotecha on Facebook, so I didn't remember, there's a section in the Tzemach Tzedek on Priya V'Rviyah, on having children, the mitzvah to have children, that Mamish explains this. And then I remembered that there's a mimer from Tafkuf Samech Bet, from the Alter Rebbe, that he discusses this as the explanation for why the antipodal people don't fall off the face of the earth. You know what an antipodal is? It's like somebody is on the other side of the earth from me, and of course the earth is round, so why don't they fall off? So he's one of the first people who said, why do you ask it that way? Ask it the other way around. Why don't you fall off? Because as far as they're concerned, they're right side up and you're upside down. So he explains that the geometry is what's important here. It's a circle. And it really doesn't matter the circle is equal wherever you started from. It doesn't matter. And so he's not trying to say that he's not explaining laws of physics. He's just explaining that the geometry indicates there must be some force. He doesn't know what it is. He had never heard about gravitation, I think. So he doesn't know what the force is, but it doesn't really matter, which is affecting everybody the same way, regardless of where they are in the circle or in the sphere. And that's true. That's exactly how it works. So the force didn't interest him, whether it's this force, that force. He's not a physicist. But what he knew is that geometry is telling me that everything is equal. Wherever you look at it, wherever you look at the surface of the sphere, you can say that that's the starting point. So that's the right side up, and everything on this. So since it's all relative, we're all either right side up or upside down. And there's no meaning to it. Since I don't fall off, they don't fall off. I don't know. There's no meaning to the question. Why don't they fall off? But for our intents, what it means is from wherever I'm going to start a new line, a new kav, and the kav is a direction, a new mission that I have, or a new take on the mission that I have. That is in itself the most important line. There's nothing else that's that important. There's nothing as important as the one line that I'm going to bring down in the next hour, let's say. It's the most important thing for me. That's all I can do, so it's the most important thing. But it's equal to any other line that somebody is now, again, they're zocha to be a doctor in the hospital and they're saving somebody's life. That's also bringing it. It's their mission now. And they woke up, they're like, oh, I have no strength for this. I don't know. It's all on my shoulders. I don't know how to carry it. So what do you tell them? So that's why you go to daven in the morning. What do you do when you daven? You clean it all out. You say, there's only Hashem, and Hashem's good. It's not on my shoulders. I don't have to carry the burden of the world. Now it's not on my shoulders, and Hashem's good. Now I have the strength to put it on my shoulders. My particular point, my particular mission, what I particularly need to do. So the problem with all these 7 steps and 8 steps and 12 steps and 20 steps and whatever, and points of very successful people and so on, is that you're at the tail end of your strength, and they want, by just describing to you what other people have done, they used to suddenly rejuvenate. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to learn how to cleanse everything out, to purify the air. You have to learn how to let the sun set and let the sun purify in the water. And then when the new day breaks, it's a whole new mission. It's a whole new divine soul. It's a whole new strength. And what was yesterday, it was yesterday. It's not shaykh. As good as yesterday was, it's never good enough. So upset it. Why will today be better? If today is just a continuation of yesterday. So why would today be better? Because I'll work harder? There's nothing to do with that. It's that I'm willing to take down another line of infinite light from above. And to do that, I have to reattach to Hashem.
It's a different world. It's a new world.
It's a new world. So that's what we said, that Hashem was creating worlds and destroying them. Not because He didn't know what He wanted. He knew what He wanted. But He wanted to teach the world that it's okay to end and restart. He wanted to imbue it in us, this feeling that it's okay to let the previous world die. Every day, the end of the day is the end of the day. That's it.
We do tshuva and then we
Okay?
go.
And today's a new world. Nothing of the past is here. Nothing of the past. Obviously, everything we've done, the collective success is still here.
But Arsula is on the same question. David HaMelech says his sin is in front of him
Okay.
already.
That's David. That's rectifying the ego. Here we're learning about Moshe Rabbeinu. David teaches us shiflus. Moshe Rabbeinu, he teaches us how to do our mission in life. Bittul. Relatively speaking, all of faith and confidence is what did we say in all of rectifying the ego in short? Is to bring down Moshe Rabbeinu, to bring down your mission, you have to be very lowly. What does that mean? You make a vessel, and the vessel is called lowliness. How much I'm dependent on Hashem. So because I make a vessel like that, of itself the mission comes down. The light of Hashem comes down and fills me.
He didn't eat, he didn't drink, he didn't for 40 days, no?
So maybe. The point is that I'm creating a vessel that draws the light down by itself. It's a spontaneous process. The fact that the light comes down is spontaneous. It has nothing to do with me. But faith and confidence is that it all depends on me. Because I'm not talking about making a vessel in order to bring the light down. I'm talking about making the leap to make the light come down. I have to make the leap. Why? Because in rectifying the ego, I was only talking about my identification with the animal soul. Now I'm talking about my identification with the divine soul. And the divine soul has to come down. To come down is to make that leap, to be willing to leave Hashem's presence and come into the world. There's no lowliness needed here. You don't have. In fact, lowliness will only hurt you here. You can't say Chas v'Shalom. You can't say, "Who am I to do a mission in the world?" On the contrary, if you're here, it means Hashem has all the confidence in you that you can do a mission. Here it would be fake lowliness, fake humility, to come and say, "Who am I?" So it says about Shem Tov, when it comes to this, so it's like we read in Shabbos, the Para Aduma, it purifies the person who's tamei. Doesn't mean it purifies the person who's tamei. That if you feel I'm downtrodden, I have nothing, I can't do anything, and so on, you need a little bit of Para Aduma. You need a little bit of the gaiva the feeling of hubris that the paraduma gives to know that Hashem trusts you to do a mission. You have to get out of bed because there's something that you can do. Regardless of your state. Doesn't matter. Hashem if you're still in the world, Hashem trusts you that you can do something. Whatever you can do. So I hope it's not too theoretical, all of this. But again, the point is that the confidence here is not confidence that as what we would call security. That I have that life is okay, it'll be okay. It's something else. It's confidence that I can change reality. It's a different type of it's active confidence. It's a very different type of confidence.
Potential.
Well,
Potential.
and it could be also passive confidence in the sense that I just have to be in the right place at the right time and it'll change. But I still have to go there. Yeah, I still have to be there. But even if I can't act, even if I don't know the words, but just being there will make it happen. That's passive confidence. But in the end, it's to change reality. Whereas when we're talking about the confidence or security that the animal soul needs, it's just security that Hashem is in charge here. And you don't have to do anything. And you never have to do anything. It's all fine. You always stay in that state. Okay. Hashem is the one who's holding you up all the time. He's not entrusting you with anything. It's okay. You stay in that state. That's why we'll see that the non-Jewish state of mind is that the world cannot be fixed. That is the starting point. And that the Jewish state of mind is that the world can be fixed. Where do we see this? So the biggest contribution, says the Rambam, that Judaism had to everybody in the world is that they believe in redemption. That everybody in some way, the Rambam calls it Geulah, he calls it Mashiach, doesn't matter. But everybody in some way now believes, hopefully, that we're still fighting this battle, but over people's minds. But we're trying to get everybody to believe that the future is better than the past. That we're headed towards a very good place. And we have to cope with all the people who make zombies, and zombie movies, and then this and everything's going to be apocalypse now. So that's where the real battle is holding. Okay? That's where it really is. That's where we're battling with people's minds right now. We're trying to cleanse them from all the nonsense, from the shtuyot that are in their heads, that the world cannot be fixed. That is the non-Jewish attitude, the natural non-Jewish attitude. We'll see that it's Noach's attitude. Noach is, for him, the Mabul is an apocalypse, it's not a new beginning. When the new beginning starts, he's out of it. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to cope with a new beginning. Because for him, a new beginning is it's not a new beginning, it's just the residue, the leftovers from the world that was lost.
That's why they say his daughters were Tzidkaniot.
His daughters? We're not talking about Lot. Lot also, same problem.
Yeah,
We're talking about Noach.
Yes. No, I meant Lot. Yeah, yes. Yes.
Lot also had the same problem. That's why it's true that the fact that the daughters saw the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they wanted there to be a continuation. So from that we learned that they have some part in the Mashiach. And from both of them came Naamah and Ruth, two good converts who are the essence of what Mashiach is. They become the essence because they sprout out this understanding that the end of the old is not what's interesting. It's the beginning of the new. So obviously, the end of the old is not a catastrophe. When the sun sets in the ocean, it's not a catastrophe. It's beautiful. It's the greatest beauty that there is. It's not the picture that the Goyim have. The Goyim have this thing that first you have to destroy everything, and then we'll start anew.
It shines somewhere else.
All the more so.
The sun always shines.
Okay. It's always somewhere, somewhere in the sphere it's day. So for them, even if they come to this place where they begin to believe that there can be a good future, it's still, for many of them, still predicated on their, first of all, being, the old has to be destroyed. It's one of the reasons why America is so successful, because America was the belief that you could start something new. That's why they called it the New World. In the end, it's only in many ways serving the animal soul still, but it's the intellectual level of the animal soul, which is a very big progress from Europe, which was just simply the animal soul. Just that. And it's one of the proofs, by the way, that the moment that Messianism, call it, that a belief that there can be as they called it, a new Jerusalem, a new something, whatever they called it. When there was a belief in people's minds in the Christian world in Europe that there could be something new, so Hashem immediately showed that there is something new physically. No, people didn't know there was another continent that big and that rich and that potentially successful. But the moment that it entered into their minds, which is when they stopped with the Catholicism, or at least Catholicism died down, and Protestantism took over, they cleansed a lot of the nonsense that was in the Catholic world. So right away you see that the reality of the world agrees with you. And suddenly there's a new place to build all of this. And this place is free from all the tumah that was in Europe. It's not the same thing at all. But again, Hashem's just showing an example. He's just saying, wherever you decide that you're going to start a new day, so know that the reality will shine on you. Because reality is waiting for you to want to reveal its goodness. Because that's your mission. Your mission really isn't, you're not really doing anything. You're just revealing that the world that Hashem created is good. You're taking away all the things that are hindering that revelation. You're taking away all the things that are negative. So I think we began to talk about this at some point. We should say a few more words about it. There were two diametrically opposed pictures of what it means to see, to look, to gaze. The ancient picture was that light goes out of the eye and hits the object, and that's what it means to see. Meaning that the light was somehow coming out of the crystal in the eye. That's what they imagined the eye to be. Like a pure, transparent crystal. That's why they had a thing like a crystal ball. What's that? It's like an eye. It's just a bigger eye. And when you look through it, you can see to more distant places. That's the idea. Because it gives out more light than just your eye. We have, since the 16th century, 17th century, a completely different picture. That we say that light is coming from the object into our eye. Why did the model change? Because there was a lot of discovery of things. Science discovered many things that didn't make sense anymore, that there was light coming out of the eye. But Chazal used the ancient model. So you can't say that it was wrong. There must have been something right about it. So it's not right in terms of the science, but that's not what interested them. What interested them was, what was this model saying? The model that says that light is coming out of the eye and striking the object that you're looking at. So what was it saying?
It's saying that you really don't see anything without consciousness or mind to perceive it.
The reality is subjective, it's not objective. What's in reality, what is in reality depends on me, there's no objective reality per se. Again, there is objective, but that's not what interests me. What interests me in life is how I perceive things. And that's the idea that we'll see much more in length as we go on with this article. That my mission is to call it seduce reality to reveal its goodness. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to, I'm not seduce reality to show its goodness. Because it is good. This is what's called, that when Hashem created the world, there was a light, a special light. And then he hid it, he concealed it. So where did he conceal it? He concealed it in the Torah, it says. And he concealed it for the tzaddikim for the future. What does that mean? That when you learn Torah, you learn how to see reality. You're getting that light that will come out of your eyes, not enter into your eyes. Meaning, I know there's objective reality. I'm not stupid. I know I'm just as good a scientist as the next guy. But that's not where psychology works. Psychology is not focused, here in this case, in the case of faith and confidence. What I'm focusing is not what is out there, but rather how can I influence what is out there. And to really influence it means, first of all, to see it in a different light. And that light comes from me. That's the new day. If I go through a night and I say, how I saw things yesterday, that's over. It's finished. The sun set on that. There's no more of that light anymore. And now today, it's a new sunrise. It's a new light that's coming out. It means that if yesterday I could see only so far, today I can see further. And further, I mean deeper into the goodness that's in here. Okay? So let's just finish the thought. For instance, if I have a child, and the child has all kinds of problems, so every day it seems to me that I'm just repeating the same issue again and again and again and again. What's the point? It says nothing's changing. It says no. Every day, the reason it's coming up again is because you have to see further, deeper into the goodness that's in that child. In that child. You're challenged with it. You have to find something deeper. It sounds to you like every time you're a broken record. You keep saying the same words of encouragement. You keep saying the same thing, and it doesn't work. So it's not working because you're stuck on the tail end of the same line that you brought down from 5 weeks ago when the problem started. Why is it continuing into the next day? Why is it not solved yet? Because there's still more goodness to see there. You have to influence it more. You have to find something new to say. It's a new sunrise. It's something new. You can't just keep repeating it. That's what they say. That's why we don't like tools, because tools are always, they straitjacket you into having to do things a certain way. No, you have to, if the problem is coming back, siman, that's a sign that it needs a deeper gaze, a better gaze. You have to look at it even more with good eyes, with a good light coming out of me. And if I don't know how to do it, so I go learn some more Torah. Because Torah has that. When the Baal Shem Tov was faced with a problem that he didn't know how to solve, so he used to open up a sefer, usually it's a Zohar, and he'd read it. And right away he would have the light to shine on this problem. And the light is not hocus pocus. It's not like, just look at it, it's gone. Alevai, sometimes that does happen. Sometimes that's all it needs. Sometimes all the person needs to hear is, instead of more criticism, more encouragement, more confidence that they can also be part of the goodness in the world. Sometimes that's all they need, just to hear it once and it's over. But sometimes, to encourage somebody, to give them confidence that they can succeed, it requires a lot of work. And it comes back another thing. It says, it's still not okay. I still don't feel well. I said, okay, so let's find something more, and something more, and something more.
You also have to find something true.
Of course, it has to come from Torah. Yeah. So the light is not finished yet. So that's why it's coming back, because I haven't penetrated more deeply enough.
But it said that what you were
So it's in order. So again, what is it?
It's a little different than what you're saying, but there's sometimes kufos where you feel the light and then you go down. Like, meaning I could be like, oh my gosh, that kufa, like a few weeks ago, I felt more life. I felt less constriction, and now I feel more constriction. Like what? Meaning, like sometimes yesterday was actually good, and like the present does not feel so good. So what does that mean?
The light is not to look at myself, it's only to look at reality. It's not how I feel, I don't care how I feel.
Well,
I'm not here to encourage myself. I'm here to change reality.
but is it possible that in the past there's certain parts that were higher than, or like, are you saying no matter what you're feeling, it's getting better and better? Like,
Regardless of what I'm feeling, I'm not the issue. The issue is reality. Am I able to change reality? If I change reality, I'll also feel better right away.
okay, but if a problem
If I
keeps on coming
focus
up,
on
isn't that
myself,
me?
if I focus on myself, that's just self-involvement. I have to go
Uh-huh.
back to rectifying the ego. I'm still stuck in myself. I don't know. What do you want? Go back to grade school. Learn how to stop looking at yourself as the center of the world.
Okay.
You have to be able to do that, because now we're to focus on or to identify what the divine soul says, that the divine soul is not here for me. It's here to change reality. I'm here for the world. I'm here for changing reality.
So I once heard really great tzaddikim rabbis, like divorce rate, like they say that you're basheret, when people just stop in the beginning, the middle, whatever, and they must hurt them because they could probably be doing.
Oh, they could
something-
lower the divorce rate. Is that what
No,
you're
they
saying?
can't. I'm just saying it must be painful for great
to see
tzaddikim
it.
that see this in their eyes, to see so many couples cutting it off.
Come.
and just
But
stopping
it's
because-
in the end, it's the tzaddikim's fault, because they didn't teach.
But it-
That's what it says. That whenever there's something like that, you are plagued by what you didn't do. Hashem shows you what you didn't do.
But it's not their fault, it's people cut it out, no?
People cut it up because people don't know better.
It's not the tzaddikim's fault that people give up.
Again, it's like
Okay.
you can't sit in your room and come and say, and I'll anit nafshi itzalti, sit there and learn Torah and be very happy with myself, and not teach. So it comes to so one guy, he's a big tzaddik. He'll be heard by 10,000 people. The other person, he's a little person. So 3 people heard him. There's no difference. It doesn't matter how many people heard you. That was the main thing that the Rebbe tried to instill in the world. That if you know something, you have to teach it. Because you can't. It's not for you. It's not for. Stop making it about you. It's not about you. You're here to transfer it on. You're here to take that light that you took from the Torah and to shine it out of your eyes.
But people,
And to bring reality to a new place. So if you then see, that's what I just said. That if my child comes back every day, and I have the same conversation with him again, I don't have the same conversation. I try not to have the same, but he comes up with the same issue
Yeah.
again and
Okay.
again and again and again. So every day, I don't make it up before because I don't want him to. I'm not preparing for it. I hope it doesn't come back. But if it does come back, and we have to have this same topic under our observation again, so Hashem is telling me you have to go deeper. You have to take something new that you learned and apply it here. And you can't, and that's what keeps things going.
Wow.
A lot of what Reb Usher used to do was just to keep people going. Because most of the problems solve themselves anyway. Because all the reality really wants is for a positive eye, a caring eye to look at it.
Which Rebbe?
Reb Usher Freund.
Oh,
So he didn't really sit with people in therapy. He just encouraged them again and again and again and again till the person got through it.
Is this connected to the, it says that when Mashiach will come, the black of the eye, the pupil, will become light.
Right,
And then we'll
right,
see everything
right,
different.
right.
So it will be also physical, not only spiritual. It's
So
like
yes.
a spiritual which becomes
Yeah.
physical. Almost.
To say it, don't believe it, but you're right. There was one more thing about this more things to say, but okay, let's continue a little with chapter 33. Okay. So again, the idea here is that I want to purge. I want to enter into a state where I'm starting anew. I'm bringing down some new infinite light. I'm the conduit for it. But if I'm still stuck with all my previous emotions and feelings and constraints and so on, I know what I want to say. One more thing about, there's a big machlokas, one of the biggest machlokas is disputes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. How do you dance before the Kala? What do you say? When you're dancing before the Kala, so you're supposed to say, Kalana Ava Chasuda. She's beautiful and righteous. Or, like, that's what Beis Hillel says. For Beis Shammai, they say, Kala Kmochi. As she is. You can't make up a story that doesn't exist. It's Asr. So there's a big question. What is Beis Hillel thinking? How can you possibly say something that's not true?
What is this?
Beis Hillel says you should dance before and say Kalana Ava Chasuda. You're beautiful and you're righteous and you're tzaddikus and so and all the good things. Beis Shammai says you're not allowed to say something that's not true. You have to say it as it is. No, you're a little short. You're a little this. You're a little that. So, like we always know, Beis Shammai is talking about the future. It's the future. In the future will be revealed that everything is really good. So, Kmochehi is fine. The way she is really perfect. It's just that we can't see it yet. But Beis Hillel says we're working now. What are we doing now? We have to increase light, like on Hanukkah. They say you add light every day. You have to add light to the system. You have to add light to what you're looking at. In the end, it'll be like Beis Shammai, Kmochi. She really is now because that's just you can't see it right now. Okay? Yeah, to bring out a person's good traits, and to bring out a woman's beauty or her finesse or elegance, all these things, you have to believe in it. A woman here is like the symbol for reality. If you don't believe that reality is good, at its essence, because that's how Hashem created it, then it's very hard for you to add goodness into it, to add light, which will bring out the goodness. But it's your task to say that this is a beautiful and lovely bride. This reality that I'm in, as difficult as it seems to me, it's all good, but I have to believe in this. So that's what the purging does. It brings me to a state with no reality, no revealed reality, in which there's only Hashem, before reality, as it were. And if Hashem, the substrate of all reality, is good, so reality also must be at its core good. That's what I need to feel. If I can't do that reset on my psyche, it's very hard for me afterwards to bring down the light that will affect reality and bring out its goodness. So that purging is necessary to first of all, to connect with the basic goodness in everything. And goodness means it'll all be good. It's all good. Doesn't matter what you do. As is, kmochehi, like she is, she's fine. That's why when we'll learn it later, we'll see that. So, we'll see it later. Chapter 8. We're only in chapter 1. So we have a ways to go until we get there. Okay, so let's read in Tanya a little bit. This also will be the true joy of the soul. What do you mean true joy? There's fake joy. There's true joy. Simchat hanefesh ha'amitit. What's the true joy? The true joy is a substrate. It's in reality anyway. It's all you have to connect to. You just have to connect. How? Especially when one recognizes at appropriate times that one needs to purify and illuminate one's souls with the gladness of the heart. So it's not to bring down light here. It's just to purify, to push away everything that's negative, and immediately it'll be from itself illuminated. Like Yoda says, luminous beings are we. You're luminous inside.
Illuminate.
But you don't have to illuminate.
Illuminate.
You eliminate and you become luminous. It's very good. See, it's already the best part of what we just learned. With the joy of the heart, the gladness of the heart, let him then concentrate. How do you do this? concentrate the mind and envisage, meaning see in your mind's eye, in his intelligence and the mind's eye and understanding, the subject of his everything. There's only one thing here. It's just Hashem. There's nothing else. What about this chair? I said, in my mind's eye, nothing is here. There's only in the East, when you go into your mind's eye and you say there's nothing here, so the only thing that's here is me. and the task becomes, how do you eliminate the you, the I, from this vast void? I'm the only thing that's bothering. So maybe that's true, but that's not the only thing that's there. When you take everything away, when you cancel everything out, the one thing that shines is Hashem's goodness. Hashem is good, that's it. So you have to use the mind to envisage in the intelligence, the mind's eye, and understand the subject of his blessed true unit. And it's a subject. Meaning this is what Hashem is. This is what it means. How he permeates all worlds, both upper and lower, both higher and lower. All the worlds, spiritual, physical, it's all the same. There's no difference. The soul and the physical world, they're contradictory here, but in his oneness, they're all just the same. And even the fullness of this earth is his blessed glory. And even the impact, right? How is Hashem going to show us that reality is really good at its core? Then what's going to happen? Somebody has a good imagination. That we'll discover that you can get down to the core of the... Nobody knows what's lower than 12 kilometers. Nobody has any clue. It's all theory, it's all speculation. Because nobody can go down there. But what's down there? Hashem's goodness. What do you mean by Hashem's goodness? You're going to take your mind out goodness? Who knows? Maybe when you get down to 50 kilometers, you take any piece of it out and you drink it with a little bit of water, and suddenly you become an infinite being. Who knows? When the time comes and we break through all the barriers that we have of not believing that we can change reality, that reality is good at its core, then reality will reveal its goodness. When we take that away, it's like discovering the new world. There's another way that people think about it, that also outside, somewhere, there's an asteroid that has some material, that if we just found this material, it's 100 times stronger than cement, 1,000 times stronger than steel, and you can build with it a 1,000,000-story building without any problems. It won't go anywhere. You can even hold that building that you built. It's so strong you can swing the earth around on it. It's that strong a material. So who knows? I don't know. There's no end to the discovery, because really each level of discovery and like the New World was discovered the same way the Americas were discovered. It's only because we broke free of these chains. So I'll show you something new. It always existed. It was always there, but you weren't ready for it. So who knows what's underneath here? That's what he says here. And in what he calls here the fullness of this earth, in the inside of this earth also, it's all goodness. There's no iron core there. We don't know what's down there. It's speculation. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. We don't know. What causes a magnetic field? Who knows? There's a guy there running with a dynamo. I don't know. What's down there? You know that in the 1800s it was very popular too. Jules Verne did a book on it, The Journey to the Center of the Earth, that they believed that there was an inner Earth. So since then we've become very, very objective and learned and so on. We don't believe there's anything down there. What is there? The iron, the molten iron. How do you know? Because that's the only thing that creates a magnetic field. Really, I can show you 1,000 things that create a magnetic field. So there's other reasons why I think things. So, yeah, we don't know. So even there, it's all goodness. And when the time comes, that goodness will come out. And how everything is of no reality whatsoever in his presence. Nothing has any separate reality. There's no such thing. Everything is just Hashem. So you have to meditate on this. You have to see this in your mind's eye. When you see it in your mind's eye, you're purging yourself of all the limits that you previously placed on the goodness of reality. You have to come to Kalana Ava Chasudah to be able to say about reality, it's all good at its core. How do you say that? But you can't look at reality. You have to see it inside. And if Hashem is the substrate of all reality, and Hashem is good, and again, it starts from that. If you don't believe that Hashem is good, we have to start a little bit earlier. We have to convince you that Hashem is good. If you think Hashem is not good, you've got to. It's not a problem with Hashem. It's a problem with your definition of what Hashem is. Hashem, by definition, is goodness. That's what it means. There's no such thing as an evil Hashem. There's no such thing as an angry Hashem. These are all phenomena that come out. But Hashem Himself is what. When I say Hashem, I mean goodness. And like we always say that in English and in German, it's exactly that word, that God is good. And He is alone, is one alone in the upper and lower realms, and He was one alone before the 6 days of creation, also in the space wherein this world was created, the heavens and earth, and all their host. He alone filled this space, and now also this is so, and it hasn't changed anything. The basic reality of all creation is Hashem. He is everything. He's at the core of everything. For all things created are nullified beside Him in their very existence. Kula kamei kelo chashiv. Before Him, it's as if nothing here was created. Nothing. He hasn't changed. When we say He hasn't changed, we're not talking about questions of physics. Whether He has more energy, less energy, it's not the point. The point is that as He was before, He is now. That same infinite goodness that was before the world was created still exists as a substrate of everything that is here. It hasn't changed, it's still here. And it permeates everything. That's the most important thing, it's everything. For all things are created are nullified beside Him in their very existence, as are nullified, and what's the example? The letters of speech and thought within their source and root. Namely, the essence and the substance of the soul, which are its 10 faculties, Chokhmah, Bina, Dat. The example is that before I started talking, before I started thinking, this morning at least, then everything was there. It all existed there. I'm just bringing it out now. But really, compared to what I wanted to say, what I wanted to do, how I thought before, how I conceived of things before, any attempt of mine to explain what I understand before is always doomed to failure. I always feel that it's nothing compared to what I had inside. I wasn't able, and we know because again, if I talk for an hour, so I expect that 5% of it, 10% of it will actually make sense to somebody. Not that they don't understand. It's that I can't, as much as I try to bring it out, it's still nothing. If I could let you tap into the brain, I think, into the mind, so then you would understand what I meant. But my ability to reveal it is always limited. And that's what we mean when we say that this world is limited light of Hashem. That He didn't reveal the infinite, because if He would have revealed the infinite, what would that have done to us? You couldn't exist. The whole point of conversation is that you remain different from me when we finish. If conversation meant that I became you, so it would be a one-time exercise, and the world would be boring. It doesn't work that way. The whole point, the whole greatness of conversation is that the gap is always retained. That you can never fully express what you want. And it's okay. That's how it is. Otherwise, it'll go back to being nothingness. So again, my point is, we don't have telepathy. We don't have this because telepathy would mean that there would be no more individuality. The moment that all the minds would be shared fully, so then there would be no more individual minds. What?
We become one.
Okay. Well, all the minds would become one. Is there a level at which all the minds are one today? Is there such a thing?
Matan Torah,
Okay.
yes.
By the Jewish people, it's Matan Torah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Risia, where you talked about Risia. So she's hearing it on a higher level. That's what she talked about in the beginning. That there's a collective soul. Collective soul means there's somebody whose thoughts unite many, many people. And in that sense, they're together. They're one with him. So the Rebbe, for instance, every Rebbe is like that, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe especially, is the feeling that he's giving everybody an implant of himself, as it were. And it's a good implant. It's like, and you're right, it takes away from some of the individuality. Another example is when people marry, so part of their individuality is lost. And it's true. It's gone. I can't continue to completely think differently from my spouse. At some level, there has to be tmimut deim, so some equality of opinion. You can't not agree about everything. You can for a while, but eventually there has to be an equalization, some level of equalization. So the problem is that most people can't get through that stage. Let's say one of them becomes a Baal Tshuva, suddenly the other one isn't yet. So there's a feeling like there's no conversation. We can't, but it's a temporary stage. Temporary, it could last 20 years. But if you let the conversation continue, then you'll see that really, even if they become a Baal Tshuva, and many things were still of the same opinion. Even people that one became a Baal Tshuva and one isn't. So still, most of what they have in common is still in common. It hasn't changed. But the tshuva is like so frightening that suddenly now they're a different person because they act differently. It could be that it still fits in some way in their world view, the way they saw everything before. It hasn't really changed that much. So anyway, so we have to end here.